Tonight on Insight, going to China.
I hope there'll be two legacies. The legacy of the athletes themselves, which will excite and inspire the world in the capabilities of what people can achieve, and a new awareness. And hopefully we've all seen what's happened now, that we can look to the future and try and make a better world before we have another situation like this happening, and take the responsibility to educate ourselves and become more aware about everybody in the world and things that can be done to help.
Melinda, has the Olympics been a force for good in China from where you sit?
I think in some ways it has, and in other ways it's not been. I think the lasting legacy of the Games will not become clear yet. As a journalist residing in Beijing now, I actually think the post-Olympic period will be extremely important for clarifying what this legacy will be. Personally, I would hope that it would be a legacy of transparency. We've seen improvements in that regard, especially right after the earthquake in Sichuan. We've also seen some stunning tragedies in terms of transparency, like what happened in Tibet, which remains a mystery to the outside world even today. But the criticism of the opacity about what happened in Tibet, I think, could be a force for good in the longer term, in the medium term even, focusing people's attention on the need for transparency. I think it's possibly too ambitious to say, let's just reverse this human rights record in a very short period of time. But certainly the record on transparency shows some signs of promise.
What do you think, Paul?
I think we should be wary of putting too great a burden of expectation on the Olympics. The legacy of the Games ought to be that we speak candidly and temperately about these realities in China. We don't have to be angry and hostile towards China or even to the party, just honest about it. And if that comes out as a legacy of this Games, of the dialogue about them, we will have made progress.
Simon, how will you be measuring whether these Games are a success?
The sustainability of things like increase in sport and recreation, which is a legacy we haven't talked about here, which is very important to me, and I'm a great supporter of Amnesty International, but I think it's a little bit rich to say that there hasn't been a positive legacy from the Olympic Games before the Olympic Games have been held. I think it's a little bit hard to say that. Let's look in 5 years and
well,
see.
Well, who'll be looking in 5 years?
Well,
who'll be measuring what's happened?
I hope everybody, but and I think and I suspect, with modern communications being the way they are, okay, not widespread in some parts of China, but throughout the world, I hope it'll be different now, because it's a whole new, different world of communications now, and it's much harder to bottle things up and hide things than it was then.
Temper, what would you like to see be the legacy of these Games?
For me, as a Tibetan, one of the worst things with the Olympics for, this year is the resentment that the Chinese Communist government has created, not just between the Tibetans and the Chinese in Tibet itself, but around the world. This strong resentment which will take generations and generations to heal.